How are you doing? It's Sansa here, and today we are looking Dead Space Remake. I give you some gameplay, humble opinion and thoughts what I did and what I did not like about this game. All footage is from early game, trying to keep this as spoiler free as possible. Now if you missed the hype, the Dead Space is kind of a mix of survival horror game, and sci-fi action game, filled with blood and loose limbs and all that core stuff. Now I have to say that I really enjoyed this game, and mostly it's really good game, but I did find, few smaller flaws that drop it from the 10 out of 10 pedestal. Now the main character is Isaac Clarke. He's an engineer and he's heading to investigate a ship called Ishimura with other crew members that he have, and they get some distress call from it, Ishimura is kind of a mining ship, and also Isaac's 5 working on there with some mysterious projects, yeah. Now the landing on Ishimura end up being disaster. Something goes wrong and they crash their ship, and of course now they are stuck on the Ishimura before they can repair it or find another ship, I guess. So at first Ishimura seems abandoned and empty, which brings up a little bit of suspicions. But, only after a few minutes the shit hits the fan and monsters start to come everywhere. Or necromorphs, like they call it. So the main mission is basically to get the wife and get out of the ship. So the game basically throws you middle of the horrors and winks the eye saying have fun. Giving you, feeling that you have to figure out yourself how to survive. And that feeling really works and lasts across the game. Games not only settle for cheap jump scares, but the scary feeling is built really well with the sounds, dark atmosphere, and enemies that are actually dangerous when they get near. So you want to keep them as far as possible. Now killing the monsters is actually another thing. Aiming to the head like on other games usually won't work. You have to actually cut their limbs one by one. And good strategies usually start with the legs to slow them down, and after they crawl to you, it's easier to cut their hands and, other parts, if they have tails, whatever. So, game gives you, I think, satisfying amount of guns to do these deeds. The plasma cutter, some sort of circular saw, flamethrower, you name it, there is everything. And the guns are actually, I think they are invented to the construction work or mining things, but they work pretty well with cutting off limbs. And you can also upgrade these weapons with credits you find along the way. The catch is you probably can't get all the upgrades, so I ended up giving more upgrades to the weapon that I like the most and probably gonna use most, The combat at this game works pretty well. I played somewhat normal difficulty and there was just right amount of ammo and upgrades available. Basically you want to save as much as ammo as possible because there's not plenty, but the game throws you at the situation when you spend way too many ammunition when panicking, and that's the whole point. Many times you get off your guard when enemies ambush you and panic shoot all your ammo to the walls and everywhere and get remorse after. Best way to survive is basically stay calm. I think the game's difficulty is just right, at least at normal difficulty for me. I did progress fast enough, but lacking of ammo and health, it keeps you at your toes all the time. Now if you're running out of ammo, you can always try to hit or stomp the enemies, but at that point you are basically dead. And first I did not give much appreciation to gravity gun, which knocks the enemies down for a while. But at the end game, when there is a lot more enemies and less ammo, running away from situations became more and more necessary option. So with gravity gun you can knock their enemies and get that few seconds to escape, and that works. Now let's talk about sounds. Goddamn, guys. They are seriously good. There is something going on all the time, like, is it like whispers, some machine noise in the distance that you really can't tell is it enemy walking or not, or coming your way. It makes the atmosphere really creepy and builds the paranoid feeling that you just have to look behind your shoulder and illuminate all the dark corners. And it really works, I tell you. And talking about dark corners, game rely on basic horror elements like Ishimura is really dark. there is light very rarely and a lot of dark corners, and you only light source is flashlight. Now, on situation when there is multiple enemies, you usually can't actually see what's going on outside the beam of light, making the encounters harder. That makes you actually move much more than you probably would otherwise. Now, sometimes Isaac is really pain in the ass to move, I tell you. He's got this heavy suit and he's not like Usain Bolt or anything. You know, he's running pretty fast when you got on the move, but the start is like trying to speed up on motorway with truck or something. This obviously choice the devs have made. It gives you this underdog feeling that you can just run away from everything, and you have to try to not to get surrounded, but because most of the enemies are fast, you know. This grow my blood pressure a few times, and I think that it would be nice to have a guy that can run normally, but it would have, of course, take a lot away from the combat. So I don't know. I can't say this is a bad thing only because I see what they did there, and it works. But still, sometimes I got annoyed about Isaac's heavyweight. I just can't help it. I just can't. Now, the game is pretty straightforward. I mean, the gameplay. You got a map and the guiding light that you can follow, but the game does give you some freedom to wander around. Maybe you just got level 2 clearance and you remember that there was locker or locked door before. And unusual situations you can go back to explore what was behind. And game did throw some random enemies time to time, even on searched rooms and hallways, so you never can be too comfortable to, you know, wandering around. And on the faraway places you actually travel with the tram. So yeah. Now, what about graphics? Well, I think it's one of the nicest looking game right now. You know, lightning and shadow combination works so well to bring the Ishimura horror feeling to your sofa or wherever you happen to play. And I get feeling that it's not only nice candy surface, but it also serves the purpose, you know. There is all that what you can expect on the modern game, starting from ray tracing and ending up with the DLLs. And I played this with PC, and this game runs pretty well. You know, I got 3080 build, and if you run it with 2K, I can almost max everything and get away over 60 FPS. With 4K, I had to bring some settings down to get that 60 FPS. It's of course subjective, but 60 FPS games like these are usually enough for me. We're talking about slower pace game, and usually you got good time to react things, but as I said, this depends who's playing, but I think how good this game looks, and you know, I felt like the game runs good enough. At the end game, Ishimura, you know, the claustrophobic hallways starting to feel a little bit, you know, seen, if you will. Parts which are out of space and big rooms, non-gravity rooms gives a little bit variation to the game, but it's mostly Ishimura dark corridors, and it kind of works and gives the creepy feeling, but it still lets me hope a little bit more variation just to keep the game fresh till the end. But overall, this game was really good experience and must play to anyone who is hungry for survival horror. And I dropped 1 point because of somewhat clunky feeling of movement time to time and some technical issues that I had. Nothing too serious, but I did have some. So it goes 9 out of 10, and I also give Ansa recommend sticker for it. So, what's your thoughts about this game? Let me know in the comments, and if you happen to like this video, consider to subscribe and hit the thumbs up. And I got you on the next one. See you.